So we actually have a variety of programs for the Esports Association. One is career readiness. So we actually work with the Career Center here to better prepare our association members to learn those life skills that they are going to need so that when they make that transition over to a career pathway.
Awesome. This guy, we gotta turn around. This guy wins almost every tournament we throw. I'm telling you. You gotta watch him live. He's gonna be something big tonight.
CSUDH Esports Association is centered in 4 domains: academics and research, community engagement, competition, and entertainment.
We're trying to make sure that the students are prepared for the future, that they understand the diversity that media offers now, and again, look beyond the traditional outlets.
They can gain fieldwork, partnerships, as well as potential job opportunities and in both the higher education and K-12 fields.
We believe that esports is a strategy and not an outcome. Our association is here to help anyone that is willing to learn how to take your gaming skills to the next level through a supporting community. If you are looking to showcase your production talents to help support our esports teams, then this is the association for you. We host online and on-site tournaments that will allow our members to showcase their competitive spirit. Our association broadcasts out our competition and practices to entertain our community as well as our global audience. We believe that by joining us, you will come out of the association feeling transformed and better prepared to transfer your skills into your career. Join today and begin to explore endless opportunities through our Esports Association here at Cal State Dominguez Hills. Welcome everyone to another edition of our esports talk session here at Cal State Dominguez Hills. And we have a very special guest that I just can't wait to introduce. But before I do that, I just want to quickly say thank you all that are tuning in live and for later viewing, that we can't do this without you. So we have various social outlets there that you can follow us, like us, leave a comment. Again, all of that helps contribute to the efforts of what we're doing so that we can continue to enhance and grow our esports community. Okay, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the topic and introduce our special guest. So today's topic is event marketing and career progression. And with us today is Peter Pham. And Peter is just a man of all things. So Peter, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me here, Ruben. I know we planned this like a while out, and we've been doing a lot of like esports related things. But I really enjoy stopping by to give knowledge to the students because every single time I think that I've given it enough knowledge, I'm like, oh wait, clarity moment. I can give a better example, or I can tell a better story, or I just learned something new. Especially during this whole thing that's going on right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. So events aren't a thing. I can't bring students out to events with me to learn. So what can we do? So there's going to be a lot of talk about that. There's going to be a lot of talk about what students can do now, what the administration can do now. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, big time, big time. And you, Peter, is someone that always pushes the envelope and tries to think outside the box. And again, and even in the state that we're in, there's opportunity for innovation. And what can we do currently so that we don't slow down the learning or the production, and see what those new opportunities are and what they look like. And maybe we develop a new set of standards through this method, and maybe they work or get essentially more enhanced. So I'm excited to get into it. Now, Peter, for our audience, if you don't mind, just share a little bit about yourself and how did you get started in esports, if you don't mind?
So I'm kind of like going to date myself here, but back in 2009, I actually owned a bar. And back then it was still called Justin TV for streaming. It wasn't called Twitch yet. And I had game nights because, slow during certain nights, so you want to have different variety and events and stuff, kind of diversify your portfolio. And the game night people were super nice. Like they came, they brought their own CRTs, they brought their own game systems. They played Smash, they played Street Fighter. They cleaned up after themselves. They ate. They didn't bring outside food or anything like that, and they were just super awesome. And I just noticed one time they were streaming, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? Why are you guys talking into a mic? Who's watching this? There's like 10 people in here. And I
Yeah.
found out that we had like 100 concurrent viewers on Twitch, well, just in TV, and we were like
Wow.
front page. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I don't get it. Who cares about what's going on in like this small town out here? But it got to the point where we were hosting video game tournaments at my venue, and New York, because I'm from Massachusetts at the time, heard about it, and they're like, "Oh, this prize pool is pretty nice. We're gonna come out here. We're gonna like finesse these guys. We were seeing all these guys on the stream and stuff. So they come out, they completely sweep the deck with us, like first, second, and third, right in
Wow.
Street Fighter. And I'm like, dang, it's over. They're not gonna host game nights anymore. And they're like, "Are you kidding me? Like, we're famous. We're gonna keep coming every single like week. We're gonna keep hosting video game tournaments. It's gonna be amazing." So that was my first taste of gaming as a potential avenue for success. And
Right.
after that, I sold my business because 100 hours a week kind of not my
Wow.
deal.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
you got to open and you got to close and you got to do all the like the tertiary stuff like managing the taxes and paperwork and documents and stuff. That stuff gets tiring, right?
Yep.
And there's always that looming thing about like, oh man, if I don't put out 150%, 200%, then I'm going to lose my business, and then I'm going to lose my employees, and my employees going to be unemployed. But
Right.
that's a different thing,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So after I sold the business, I actually went back to school because it's important to learn more about yourself and like push your own boundaries. So
Mm.
I finished my degree in business management, and if I did the business management stuff first before opening my business, that would have changed how things operated. But
Okay.
sometimes you gotta learn on the fly. Sometimes you gotta learn by the book. So either
Right.
way is fine, right? So
Right.
after that, I went and worked with tech companies. Like worked with Verizon for a little while. While working with Verizon, one of my employees, temp person, was like, "Hey, there's this thing coming up over in the West Coast for Nintendo. I think you would be a great fit for that. Like, I know
Mm.
one of the manager people there. I've worked with them before. Um, do you want to be connected?" So I'm like, "Sure," because
Right.
it's Nintendo.
It's Nintendo
And
for crying out loud. Yeah.
the funny thing is like I had no business working with Nintendo, having no history of video games or like coding or anything like that.
Uh-huh.
And because of my enthusiasm, because of my expertise in being able to run teams and organizations,
Hmm.
uh, they put me to the top of the list. And I actually managed the Seattle market for one of their holiday programs. And,
Wow.
like 5 or 6 contracts later, I'm still with Nintendo. And
Wow.
I found out about the trade group, which is where I currently am now,
Right.
and they were going to be hosting the first North American DreamHack. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going there. I don't care if it's in Texas because I've already done this thing in Seattle. So we're going to go out there and we're going to put all our eggs in one basket again. So bet. So I go out there and I work with the people at DreamHack. They're super crazy, like busy guys and stuff.
Right.
I do, obviously I come in and I'm not like a manager or anything like that. I'm just doing production related work.
Right.
And from there, I started networking, started hustling. I started being like, all right, what do they need and what can I do? And then when I had free downtime, I'd sit there and spectate. All right, what are you doing? What is that? A switcher? Okay, cool. You're running cables and stuff? All right, cool. All right, you're doing like logistics with stuff? Okay, cool. So I started
Right.
learning. I started like adapting.
Mm.
And after a while, people knew me as the guy who just happened to know everything in gaming. So I knew how to do like a little bit of everything, like just enough to be dangerous.
Right.
And climbed my way through. We did some crazy projects, man. We worked with League of Legends. We worked for
Wow.
like the World. We worked a lot of PAX events. We worked any gaming company you can think of. I'm pretty sure my company has worked with them. in some capacity or another. And it's crazy because it's like 4.5 years into it, and I get to be on the team that does the new clients. So whenever we
Wow.
have new clients, it's like, I mean, back before the whole COVID thing, the
Right.
last event that I was doing was actually Magic the Gathering 26 Worlds over in
Whoa.
Hawaii. So
And
I'm over here, I'm like, all right, cool. This hotel's not so bad, but just kind of
exactly.
hanging out every single day we're done. We're just going out, sitting on like the little rockers, drinking a beer and stuff. So
Nice.
it's not that bad, So
No, no, no.
that's
Well,
that's the long and short of where I came from and all the things in
yeah.
between.
No, no, thank you for sharing that. My goodness. I mean, I love how one thing led to another, and really it takes that self um, awareness and self motivation to seek out those opportunities and to look at them as opportunities to even begin with. I love
I
hearing your story.
never
Yeah,
always
please.
had that motivation. Like
Okay.
motivation, I would say is a privilege because there are
Mm,
days when you wake up and you're like, man, I don't want to do this, but I have to,
right,
right?
right.
So it's all about discipline, all about training your mind. Like if you have a 7 a.m. class, like first of all, you're gonna beat yourself up. You're gonna be like, why did I pick this 7 a.m. class? But if you have the discipline to know yourself that you're not gonna wake up for that 7 a.m. class, you're gonna schedule it for 3 o'clock, right?
Right, right.
So you have to put yourself in the best situation possible to be the best person possible. So when these opportunities come up, you're ready for them and not just, man, I would really love that opportunity if I only didn't have this other thing, right?
Right,
You got to
right.
always be ready for it. You got to make your own chances because, man, like I'm an immigrant. Like my parents came here to escape the
Yeah.
Vietnam War, and
Okay.
I had no previous infrastructure. I don't know any advice from what should I do? Should I go to college? Should I not go to college?
Right.
Should I do this? Should I do that? Like my parents thought that I would be doing like accounting or something uh, for some firm somewhere, and it's like,
Right, right, right.
no, not to down on the accounting people. You guys have a very important
Right.
job. You control the money, but that just wasn't for me.
Right. So share with me a little bit about that, Peter. So when you shared this with your parents too, what you are doing, what was their reaction? What did they say?
They don't care and they still don't care. 'Cause it's like here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like
Okay.
this time last year, I was working with Snoop Dogg, right? And we
Wow.
were
Yes.
launching a headset collaboration with him, and there was a bunch of other collabs as well because he does this thing called the Gangster Gaming League, and it's
Okay.
basically a monthly thing where he invites a bunch of people out. So we'll play with like a bunch of industry people from his industry, the music
Right.
industry,
Music.
and we'll kind of have like a for fun tournament kind of thing.
Right.
Snoop Dogg has never lost so far. I don't
Wow.
know if that's by accident or if that's on purpose. I'm not sure. That it's
Yeah,
not scripted.
exactly. Yeah,
Certainly not from
exactly.
my end, right? But when I tell my parents, like, "Hey, mom, I just work with Snoop Dogg," she's like, "Who's that?" It's like it doesn't matter. Who's PewDiePie, who's Snoop Dogg, who's
Right,
Ninja.
right.
Like, it doesn't matter to them. What does matter to my parents is that, you know, I find my own way because
Yeah.
for my parents, they came to America
Mhm.
to fulfill, for the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. On the base level, you need like security and stuff, right?
Right.
They were that level of security. They work hard so that I don't have to work as hard as them,
Right.
right? They work hard so that I can work something that I can find fulfillment in, which is important. Like parents express that in various ways, sometimes in very conflicting ways. But at the end of the day, parents just want what's best for their children, and that's for
Right.
them to be happy in whatever they do. And for my parents, they thought that happiness was directly linked to income, and in a way, it is. To be
Right.
able to survive, you need to have some kind of income, but above a
Right.
certain threshold, you don't really need that much more. Like why
Right.
stress, right?
You
So
got it.
that's how I went with my parents. My parents,
No.
they're like, okay, he's gonna travel for like 3 months now. We'll see him when he gets back.
Just send us a postcard. Make sure you're okay.
Yeah, I send him stuff all the time, but my
Yeah,
my house is
exactly.
like a warehouse. I just send back all the stuff I collect from like events.
Nice, nice. Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that and for inviting us to that that personal aspect of it, because I know it resonates with folks, especially that are working in the space and perhaps again, they had no idea what they were going to get themselves into. It's not like there was an esports degree and there was a clear cutout pathway. It sounds like you had to really form that relationship and form that network. But share with me a little bit more your networking strategies, if you will.
So, so before I talk about the networking strategy, I'd like to talk about how this
Yeah.
generation of students is going to be the generation of students that defines video games, like esports and stuff. Why do
Mhm.
I think that? Because the first generation, the ones that were before me, they're currently like CEOs and stuff of like gaming organizations or teams and stuff. The second generation, myself, we're the people who kind of like took on those torches, ran local stuff, support
Mm.
the infrastructure as a whole.
Right.
But this third generation, when esports is going to finally become like a recognized curriculum, when there's going to be like structure of like how do you go from point A to point Z, and
Right.
get a degree in esports and work in esports, like something more formulaic and defined. They're going to be
Mhm.
the ones with the most information about the system and the ideas about what to do about changing the landscape, because
Mm.
they're the ones dreaming it up. They're the ones consuming the content. They're the ones like if you want to know where gaming is going, just follow the attention, like
Right.
what are people watching? Are they watching tournaments? Are they watching like live stream let's plays? Are they watching Among Us? Or are they watching PUBG or TFT? Like you got to
Right.
follow like the interest, right? Because at the
Right.
end of the day, that's where it goes. And there is so much in between um, a game company creating a game and a consumer playing that game. Like there's so much in between. Like I'm part of a third party company that produces for events, but there's distributors, there's like marketing people, there's partnerships program people, and a lot of like
Right.
game companies like to focus on one thing: making the game. Everything
Right.
else they're gonna outsource, right?
The publishing, right?
So like there's
Yeah.
so much done right now that are not done by people who love video game, you
Mm.
know? And that's where the opportunity for students lie. The students
Yeah.
have the advantage of loving the video game, right?
Right.
And I just want to bring up a real quick example.
Yeah, please.
Your love of video games translates to money saved and time saved, right? Real life example, 2016 Riftwalk project with League of Legends. We're touring America. We got like a 6-week tour, one week in each city and stuff. We got to send shipments back and forth to different locations to set up while we're running an event and stuff like that. So a lot of logistics.
Right.
And they always come in crates, right? Like statues and stuff like that, and like
Okay.
weapons and anything
Oh,
that's like
right, right, right. Yeah.
they come in crates, but on the crate it will just say something like um, Darius axe, Poppy
Mhm.
hammer, Leona
Right.
sword. If you're like a 60-year-old dude who's a couple of years away from retiring, you're gonna
Retire.
look at this and you're gonna be like, man, what the heck is a Poppy?
Oh,
Like
right.
what the heck is a Darius? What the heck is Where does this go? Now, why does that matter? Because now you're going back into the documents. You're looking through 400 pages of reference material because you don't know what it's called. You're
Right.
like axes, axes, axes. Let's see, where's the axes, right? And
Right. The
meanwhile, there's a
category.
bunch of people. It's like, hey man, this truck leaves promptly at 6. If you can't find out if this is going on the truck, it's going without you. You're making like you're gonna make a big expensive mistake, especially if the CEOs come out and they're like, yeah, "Where's my statue?" You know, like, "Where's
Right.
my
Right.
Katarina statue? Where's my Rengar statue?" All these things that you have no knowledge of. Like that's tangible, and even if it doesn't involve like logistics all across the country, you're still spending a lot of time that you shouldn't be on the fine details,
Mm.
and that translates to money because you're leading a team. So that's not 1 hour of your time. That's 1 hour of
No.
your time times 10 people on your team. That's actually 10 hours that you're wasting
Right.
trying to figure out where these things go. So to double back really quickly, I
No,
think
no,
you were
please.
asking me about how your networking strategy is and how we develop those relationships, right?
Right. Right.
So I would have to tell another story about how I feel about business development in the West versus business development in the East, right?
Please.
Um,
Yeah.
in the East, in Vietnam, in Asia, the way you do business is you become their friend before you do business. In the West, you do business, then you become their friend, depending on how the
Uh,
business went, right?
I see.
So
Yeah.
because of what I do, I travel a lot with events. I'll go to PAXs, I'll go to E3s, I'll go to Evos, I'll go to DreamHacks and stuff. And a lot of times you see the same faces, and you're kind of like forced to network with them because at one point or another you will work with them, whether you
Right.
know it or not, in some capacity. So it's super important that you maintain these relationships. You're super professional about things, and I want to remind the students that it's never a zero sum game. It's never if you like TSM, you automatically don't like Team Liquid, right? You have to
Right.
be
Right.
you have to be all encompassing. You have to understand that hey, your love for one client does not or should not hate on another client, right? Because you
Right.
never know if they're going to come your way and say, hey, we like what you did with this. How can we get the same thing?
Right.
So
Exactly.
you got to be open minded, very open minded.
Very. Yeah, and what you're saying there, and I'm hearing is again, the loyalties really reside in ensuring that everything about esports that you love just goes off right into the production space, and you're hoping to cultivate an experience that can be replicable, and also see what other new innovations get tied into it, so that experience can get enhanced, and without necessarily being one side minded. You're always constantly trying to think, what is the new next thing that would elevate that experience? Because at the end of the day, people forget what people say. It's how you make them feel, right? If the
For sure.
experience was enriching, then they're going to come back for more. And then you can kind of forecast a little bit about that attention, where they're going to be guided, so that it can essentially create that pipeline to lead to potential ones that are connected or similar to it. Well said.
For
Couldn't
sure, for
agree with
sure.
you
And
more.
whatever you think about product placements and stuff, because we work
Yeah.
with Twitch, we work with Facebook, we work with like a lot of different people. Whenever
Hmm.
you see a stream
Hmm.
and you see like let's say a Facebook gaming stream and you see like some product placement that's not Facebook related, that's not by accident. That's because someone's like,
Right.
hey man, like we're about to stream. We need like some gaming chairs. Like, do you have any? Bam,
Right.
there we
Right.
go.
Right.
It goes right there. It's like, hey, we're about to stream. We need some casters. Do you know anyone? Like, that's how it always goes down. It always goes down to you asking people that you trust the most. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, we're looking for people that we can trust, that are competent, that are also likable. Because we don't want to work with someone who's not any one of those, or
Right.
even missing one of those, right? Like, we're looking for long-term stability because there's so much fluctuation within esports that we're looking for that stability. So we always
And,
refer to trust.
yeah, and Peter, what I'm hearing you say, I didn't hear anything about like esports experience. I mean, so it sounds like you can have zero experience in esports, but if you possess those quality traits, then you're moldable. Then you're able
Very,
to
very,
get into the space.
very
So
moldable. There's a lot of people who actually come from outside the gaming space to join the gaming space.
mm,
And it's important that you learn the tools and techniques before you join the industry. So
okay,
your love for gaming alone will not fuel a company, right? In
right,
fact,
right,
sometimes your passion for gaming can be so overwhelming that it causes you to be blind to like
mm,
the faults that you may have or the company may have. So you always have to be critical about things. You always have to be, how can I make things better? What is my role and what am I able to accomplish within my role or beyond my role, right?
right,
So one of the things I actually recommend to a lot of students is that if you're going to be graduating soon, or if you're going into college, immediately look for what kind of job you want. Look for the
mm,
role that you want, find out what skills are needed, and actively start taking on projects that reflect those skills.
mm,
So let's say you want to work in team management on esports.
right,
Start doing esports management within your own organization at college. Start
mm,
hosting events, start working with people, start learning how to deal with conflict, because dealing with
mm,
conflict in a college setting is a lot safer than dealing with conflict at your first job. So at your first
right,
job, you
right,
can get fired. In college, at most, it's like, I'm gonna have to talk to the advisor because this is not working out.
right, right,
So
exactly. You get
make
like
your mistakes
academic
in
probation
college.
or something.
Yeah, make all your mistakes in college right now because that's the
Right on.
time for it.
Yeah.
That's the time for
To-
exploring, for breaking ground and stuff.
Yeah, more true words couldn't be said. Thank you, Peter, on that note. And that's something I do encourage, and I just have to ditto that and echo it. Because if not now, then when, right? It becomes super costly when you're out of college. And really, sometimes the interviews, when you look at your resume and what you've built and you look back, you can honestly say these were learning experiences and these are mistakes that honestly I've learned from and I can essentially not make on a company's dime or time, So totally agree. It really starts the again, the discipline route that you mentioned earlier. If you're lacking the motivation, it's just a matter of disciplining yourself, what best works for you as the individual, because nobody will know how you are unless you're in tune with yourself, right?
Sure.
And looking into those steps. Gosh, well said. So please take us further. I mean, event marketing, career progression. I mean, I just heard so much of what you've done. And what is it that you're doing right now to mentor and coach students and peers and people that you're working with that has really helped solidify this pathway of this is what you want to know, general skills. What can somebody do now? And maybe let's say at the high school level.
Gotcha. So what I do with students is I do active mentorship. I know a lot of people out there are mentors and they have different styles. Mine is a
Mhm.
very hands-on approach. I give you homework,
Love
and if you do the homework, you come back, I check up on it, I give you feedback, I give you more homework. That's basically how it goes, right?
Right.
Because unless you produce something, you will never understand what it takes to produce for someone else, right?
Mm, right.
So when my students are like, I want to work as a partnerships person, cool. We're gonna have you go out there and you're gonna do some partnerships. You're gonna talk to some brands. You're gonna see what they're like. You're gonna create some SWOT
Right.
analyses, those strengths, weaknesses,
Yep.
opportunities, and
That's right.
yeah. So you want to be able to produce something that is of value to someone. So whether you are writing a report on social media on how you
Mm,
feel that companies are doing, because that's all public information. If you're a student
right.
right now, there's public information out there about tweets. If you wanted to, you could be like, oh, here's how a bunch of companies are responding to Fall Guys related content and how they're capitalizing on that hype wave. Right. And if
Right.
you write a paper on that and apply appropriate insight as a student, that's amazing. You've already done way much more work than someone else in the industry that's being paid to do it.
Right
I
on.
gotta take my phone off. So it's like it's super important that you're like actively thinking about ways to contribute, because that's how you open doors. Right? You open
Right.
doors by creating value for people. You just don't go knock on someone's door, cold call them, and say, "Hey, I'd like to do business with you." You knock on
Right.
their door and you're like, "Hey, you've got this problem. I've got the solution. Let's talk about it."
Love it.
You're the student. You're going out there. You're looking for a job. You're knocking on people's doors for esports stuff, and they're like, "There's like 1,000 people knocking on my door. I'm a video game company. Like, how do you stand out?" Right? You
Right.
provide that value first. You're like, "Hey, look, I created this organization at college. I ran it. We're number one in our league. We've produced 5 different people who are currently employed in gaming, so we're very highly qualified.
Mhm.
And we also have people who mentor us who are in this space, and they talk about these things. Like, how much value do you think that brings students, right? And
Right.
that's so important for them to understand right now, is that you can do things right now. You don't have to wait until you have the degree to start doing things.
That's right.
You just have to keep an open mind about that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
I,
what I do
I
with students is I bring students out, and I give them these experiences. I basically do a field trip for video games, right?
mm,
So they'll come out to the event, they'll walk behind the scenes with me, of course, so they're not wandering around like on stage and stuff. And we'll
right.
talk to people. You want to learn how to cast? Cool. We're going to talk to some casters. You want to learn how to do some video related stuff? Cool. We're going to go backstage. We're going to talk to some video guys. You
Right.
want to learn how to do some like marketing related things? Cool. I'm going to talk to this person right here. They're doing marketing for influencers, for example. Or marketing is
Nice.
very very broad. So like, you
Yeah.
have like
Right. Right.
people who
Right.
do like email stuff.
PR
You have people who do
advertising.
social
Right.
media, PR advertising.
Sure.
So depending on what you want, um, you have to have those connections. And this is for the schools. This is for all the schools everywhere.
Right.
You need to have that pipeline. You cannot
Mm,
give it to your students. Do not let your students be responsible for cold calling organizations and setting up relationships with them, because two things will happen.
yes.
Either A, they take the relationship with them when they graduate, or B, they completely fumble it and there's no more relationship ever.
That's true.
You
That's
know, you
true.
can't have that. You have to take charge. As organizations, you have to take charge of the relationships you have with the gaming organizations, with the platforms, distributors, with basically everyone within the industry. Like you're doing it
Right.
for other people. You know, you're doing it for accounting companies, you're doing it for science, like medical, you're doing it for all the other companies. Why can't you have one for just gaming stuff? You can. It's in the
Right.
tech and computer category. You can do it. I believe in you. You know. So.
I love it, Peter. I mean, gosh, it's so true. Pre-establishing relationships as an org to allow then students to actually be able to be in that space to create and innovate something that perhaps will lead into something that will be highly requested or asked. But you're absolutely right. The tarnishing of a brand can easily happen if a relationship goes south, and how important that is to determine what value they're seeking and what are some of the areas of pain that have been not covered yet. And that's something that the organization has to take sort of lead in to help inform so that it can build that agency within students or within interns, if you will, in that role, to be
I,
able to actually identify
I
it. Yeah.
gotta I gotta tell you, Ruben, like
Yeah.
the amount of times I receive an email or a LinkedIn request from a student, and it's like, oh my God, did you guys take any business writing classes? Either they send me something that's so incredibly short or generic. It's like, hi, I'd like
Tell
to
me.
connect with you on LinkedIn. Or it's like, hi, my name is Ruben and I am from CSUDH. Here's my life story. Here's all the things I've
Yeah.
done in gaming. I'd love to connect with you. I'm like, okay.
Right. Right.
Sure,
Right.
I guess. You know,
Yeah.
like what that
Yeah.
shows
Doing
that what
that
that
proper
shows
intro.
me, what that shows me
Yep.
as a person is that you don't value my time. You know, what that
Mm,
shows me is that if you write too much, you don't know how to get to the point. If you
right.
write too little, you don't know how to provide value,
Right.
right? And these are important things that, you know, colleges should be thinking about, you know, that every student should be thinking about. Like, how is my
Mm,
communication? You know, am I doing it
right.
properly? Am I speaking to my employer the same way I'm speaking to my friends, same way I'm speaking to my parents? Like different people
Right.
should be spoken to differently, you know, and until you
Yeah.
establish that relationship, then you can, you know, have some leeway with it and stuff. But, you know, these are things that people have to learn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you said something there key that, I mean, esports, and I mean, just in general, communication is important. But even when you think of, practicing and enhancing your communication skills in the world of esports, where you're actually, even from the competition side, if you're the actual gamer, communication doesn't start there. It starts prior, right? It starts in the actual practice rooms. It starts in the actual scrimmaging streams, if you will, if you have those. It starts with your conversations with your coaches and the staff and even production crew, so that everybody gets to know everybody, so that they know what you're encompassing and what you're portraying, because you're showcasing what you've learned in that space.
For sure. And
And yeah, sorry.
I'd like
Yep.
to give an example of, you know, a cute little example, right? We have, we work with Pokemon. And Pokemon's
Right.
full of like little kids, you know, they play the trading card game and stuff like that. And
Right.
it's kind of like watching poker, except all their emotions are on their face. Like, oh, I got a good card. Here we go. You know, so
They can't hide
it's they can't
their
hide it, right?
Pokemon face. Yeah,
They
they
can't
can't
hide
hide
their pokey face, right?
the pokey
Right.
face.
So whenever it comes time to interview the winner on camera, you know, who do you have to thank and stuff like that?
Right.
Who are your sources of inspiration? Like, do you have any shout outs? Like, they're kids. They've never been on camera. They don't know what
No.
adults are asking of them. They don't know what they should say. So a lot of times, like America's Funniest Home Videos. Oh God, I just dated myself again.
AFV, man. AFV. I'm with you, dude. I'm with
but
you.
but they're saying like funny things like, oh, who are you thankful for? It's like my mom. It's like, and what are you thankful for? She buys me Pokemon cards. It's like it's so funny, right? It's so funny, it's so honest,
Right.
it's
It's
so
honest.
sincere and stuff.
Right.
But like, just to give you like a contrast of like, when you're dealing with kids, you expect that of them. When
Right.
you're dealing with adults, young professionals, you expect a different caliber from them. You know, when you're dealing
Exactly.
with like professionals and mentors, you expect an even different caliber from them. So it's like, you have to find opportunities for yourself to refine your own speaking.
Mm,
So whether that's putting yourself on a stream and talking to your audience, whether
mm,
that's being a moderator for a panel, whether that's being a communications person for your esports club, all these are
mm,
opportunities for you to refine your skill. All these are opportunities that you probably would not have if you didn't do it in college. Because let's be real, if you're the president of your esports club and you're managing all these people and you're doing all these cool things and stuff like that, when is the next time you get a chance to be a manager after you graduate,
mm.
right? Like
That's
just
true.
think about that
Yep.
real quick. Like maybe 10
Yeah.
years, maybe 5 years,
Right.
I don't know if you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
these
That's
are
true.
opportunities for people to participate in the space that they love, uh, fail without, well, with very little repercussion,
Very
and
little. Right.
to be able to just try out things, right? And that's why I'm so big on esports clubs, because if there's only so many clubs that are on a campus, right? And especially now that you can't really do like half those clubs, gaming
Yeah.
is still there, right?
Yep.
There's still value there.
Big time. Big time. And you know what's interesting too, even just speaking to employers, the number one question that's going to be asked, especially in an interview process, is what were you doing in the time of COVID, right? Everyone will remember this, right? This is historical. And, and if you were thinking, again, what we were talking about earlier, how is it that we are pioneering, the production rate and how we're innovating because we can't technically be all in the same space at this moment? What is it that we're doing to still make the show go on, right? Make the production value still be at its all-time high, despite the constraints. And technically, that's what you're going to have to deal with in the real world: constraints. Think outside the box. Manage resources that you currently have. Perhaps that help isn't going to come from the outside at this moment, at the timing that you want it, and it gives you that ability to kind of engineer a new way of thinking, and it's definitely adaptability that comes into mind, that essentially brings out another side of us that tells you a little bit about who you are, and especially what you do in tough situations like this.
You know, the tools are always changing, right?
Yeah.
But the
Yep.
techniques never do. The
That's true.
techniques never do. So you need
Yep.
to have a solid foundation in the tech. After
That's
that, you
right.
just apply it. That's all you gotta do.
That's
Apply it
right,
to your
man.
passion, apply it to life, apply it to whatever you need to apply it to. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's a discipline.
Yeah.
And you don't
Gosh,
get
you said
anywhere by doing nothing.
it.
Can you tell I've been like
No, that's
sitting in
right, man.
hotel rooms, like reading inspirational stuff for like the past 10 years?
I was just gonna say, man, like right now, when I hear discipline, I can't help but think of, gosh, Jocko Willink, and he's so big on discipline, and great podcast too to listen to. But man, he's just an inspirational speaker, and so true. How not only does that work into the professional field, but just in personal life too. What it is that you want to get to and amount to. But again, you said something that again I want to keep resurfacing and encouraging is start thinking where you want to go. Where do you want to be in the next 3 years, 5 years? And what does that pathway look like? Or what are you doing to put yourself in the best position to get there? Perhaps you don't know what it looks like to get there, but at least you're putting yourself in positions. And you know what? Those are all experiences. Whether it gets you there or not, or gets you closer or not, you at least can say, hey, I took on these experiences having to deal with adaptive issues. And you know what? I've learned that the technical ones are the easy ones to solve. It's the adaptive ones that I'm eager to get involved in, to make me think outside the box and be as extremely marketable to any and all industries.
For sure, for sure. And like for a lot of students who are wondering what they can do now during COVID and what they have to deal with going forward because of whether or not this is going to have a round two, whether or not this is going to put a halt to their education because they don't have enough funds or whatever it is.
Right.
Um, you have to think proactively, not only for yourself, but like for if you're going to do esports for the industry, because there are so many people who want to work in gaming who are just like, tell me what to do, I'll do it, and I'll do my best work, right? And those people come a dime a dozen. You know,
Yeah.
there are so many people that are willing to do stuff for free, even. But that's a
Mm.
different topic. You know, free labor versus like paid labor
Right.
and stuff like that. So
Right.
you always have to balance whether what you're doing right now is productive for you. Like if you think about game design and stuff,
Right.
is this piece of equipment a significant upgrade, or is it only a marginal upgrade for what I
Mm.
want to achieve? You know, like you have to
Point.
balance those things for yourself. um, is this role that I'm going to be taking, just for money, or is it going to be developing my skills? Is this a horizontal move, or is this a vertical move? Like, what is it to
Right.
me? What is it to my overall long-term game? Because you have to have a
Mhm.
long-term game. If you
Yeah.
allocate your stat points incorrectly, you wasted a lot of time that you can't take back. So that's
Yeah.
super important. Like I got gaming analogies all day.
I just heard it, man. I love it. Keep bringing them, Peter. I'm telling you, it definitely resonates because, um, you know, at this point, we're all in the same boat. But what we're doing in the boat, it really depends on us at the individual level. And, just even having a community, or if you're a school that doesn't have one at this moment, this is a great opportunity to actually begin this process and learn by trial and error and understand what others have done and seek out other organizations to say, hey, what is it that you recommend so that I don't repeat the same mistakes? It's generally the same, group of people that has similar interest. I think this recipe is as close as to succeed, or maybe I don't have the right recipe yet and I got to keep working on it so that way I get myself in a position where we create a support system that really will generate essentially the attention that it's required to want to tune in to a lot of these viewings.
So
Oh,
I'll
and,
give you I'll give you a free example. Like I mean I don't charge for any of my stuff, but um, a couple of my students who have graduated from film and media degrees, they have asked me, "Hey Peter, how do I work with famous XYZ streamer or
yeah.
YouTuber?" And I'm like, "Hey, listen, all you have to do is go out there, make a Fiverr account. For those of you who don't know, Fiverr is basically a business account that you sell your services for as low as $5. So it's like if you're good at drawing, you can sell stuff for $5. You can raise your price to $10, whatever it may be. But here's the trick: if you want to create content for big streamers, first create content for small streamers. Create
Right.
those small VODs, create those small clips, create those hype moments for other people, bring the value to them. And from there, you leverage those small successes
Mm,
to take on a bigger client, if you will, and work
right.
with bigger name streamers. Eventually, you'll have so many people associated with you and your successes that you have no option but to succeed, because all these people are,
Right.
your testimonials. So if you're a student, whatever you're doing, if it's like a creative type of work, or if it's like you're doing programming, or if you're doing business, find out how you can provide value to other people, collect those little small wins, bring it to
Yeah.
someone else and say, hey, I brought the small wins to these people. Can I work with
Mm,
you? And you just
right.
kind of like snowball it. You have to snowball it now. It's compound interest. You got to do it now. Because if you do it
Yeah.
later, it's like, well, you just got these victories yesterday. So how can I trust you?
Right.
So
Right.
you have to
Exactly.
do it now. It's important
Yeah.
to be able to show your progress. People, there is so much coming at people online nowadays. You got ads, you got cold calls, you got email things. Why should they listen to someone who just reached out to them on LinkedIn? Unless you've
Right.
got some kind of thing to prove.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And just even talking about LinkedIn and a social media, share with us like what is it that you're looking for? What is it that the industry is looking for? Big clients are looking for, along with the exponential work that you're showing from a longevity turn that you started. What is it then the social media aspect that you recommend if somebody's reviewing?
So we are in 2020. If you think that employers are not Googling you, then you might as well be back in 2000. because like people, if people have the tool, they will use the tool, right?
Right.
If you're applying for a job and they're gonna, you have a name, they're gonna Google you. You know, they're gonna look up your LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn, if you have a Twitter associated with you, if you have whatever, it's so easy to type Peter Pham Facebook, find one that matches my face, and be like, all right, that's the guy, right? And like, or find an Instagram, like, all right, that's the guy. And it's like, all right,
That's
if
the
that's his handle, if that's his handle, then he's also on Twitter, right? So let's go check out Twitter, right?
Right.
And if he's a reasonable person, he'll have the same handle on all social media platforms. Let's search him up on all social media platforms. You can't hide on the internet. We are in an age where information is so readily available that we have to be careful what we say,
Yep.
because it's not always that we're intentionally looking to harm others or
Right.
intentionally looking for conflict. Sometimes it may be that we don't know how to phrase a certain thing, or something gets understood a different way, and
Right.
that can be enough to get us canceled, right? So
Right.
it's important for students to, I mean, I know you guys love memes, I know you guys love being edgelords and stuff, I know you guys like saying hot takes, but consider for a moment, if you were to get a job offer tomorrow, would you be worried that your employer is going to dig up a tweet and fire you on the spot? You
Right.
know, that's how you should think about things. You have to think about your own personal branding for the long term, because like no matter how safe you think you are, it's like a little project that people do on Facebook where they limit who sees the stuff and try to get
Right.
if it comes back around and stuff like that. It always comes back around. Some way or
Yeah.
another, someone always finds out a way. A friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, or whatever it may be, they'll find it and then, oh, scandal, blah, blah, blah. Right?
Exactly.
So companies are actually looking for people who minimize the liability on their company, right?
You
You
got it.
can't be a
Yep.
liability for a company. They've already got too much to worry about. They don't want another like Me Too thing like what happened in June, where a
Mm.
bunch of gaming companies were just like, well, we gotta fire them. That's the only way, because everyone else
Wow.
is firing them, so we
Right.
gotta do it. You know,
Yeah.
so you have to
Yeah.
be really think about your personal branding, and you know that goes beyond how you don't want to look. You also have to think about how you do want to look, right? Because if you don't tell your own story, someone else will, and you might not like the way they tell it, right? So
That's
you
right.
have to think about your own branding. You have to think about what kind of projects am I listing on LinkedIn? What kind of photos are on there? What kind of engagements do I have? Something as innocuous as like liking a comment could send the wrong message to the wrong person, right? So you
Yeah.
got to think about that as well, because all these little things they add up. Every single time you make a comment on someone's post, every single time you like someone's photo, that creates another engagement point, another opportunity for them to check out your profile or to talk to you. Or you know, if you go on a post that says, "Hey, you know, Ninja returns to Twitch. What do you guys think?" And you're like, you know what? I think it was a great deal. He made mad money from Loaded, and like he's coming back to Twitch. His fans win, everyone wins. I'm all for it. And then like someone's like, you know what? I didn't think about it that way. I'd love to follow you. Let's talk about this more.
That's
You
right.
just created an opportunity for yourself, and all you did was comment. All you did was give your insight on the situation.
Right.
Because not everyone knows what you know, because not everyone's paying attention to what you pay attention to, you know? So
Right.
what you think is offhand knowledge to someone else's gold.
There
So
you
you
go.
have to think
Yeah.
about that on social media.
Gosh, Peter, that's well said. I mean, and just to go back a little bit, I think that's something that gets missed a lot, and perhaps not even informed so much, is that companies take on a lot of liability as it is, and if you're adding to it, they're definitely going to look at it as a red flag. And even companies have to worry about the other partnerships that they have and what those um, goals and what aspirations that they have that may be aligned with what the mission is. And if it goes contrary to that, it could create essentially that red flag that companies would essentially have to have that conversation with. But well said about the social media, because we're all on it, right? Somehow, some way, you're on it. And if you regret something, I don't know, that you posted, that's something that you'd almost have to do a little bit of digging to make sure that, hey, you correct it so that you're not putting yourself in that kind of position where you forgot, right? Like, oh gosh, I really forgot about this, and maybe this a long time ago. But it's to be mindful of what it is that you're posting, so that way you're not positioned in a negative light, or at least in question of it when it gets surfaced out. And it's not to say put total filter 100%. You still need, you're going to be you. But yeah, it's just to be mindful if that is the direction that you want to put yourself in, especially in the esports world, and other companies that are aligning to it. That could be something that, again, it will be surfaced up and it contribute to it, or in a positive way or a negative way.
I do want to point out real quick, Ruben, that the
Yeah.
alternative to having good social media is not having no social. You can't have
Mm,
no social media. It does not work in gaming at all
right.
because that's just how it is. Because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, social media is for brand building. Social media is for engagements and relationships. If you don't have
Mm,
a tool to maintain your relationships with people, whether that's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, you're not talking to anyone, then you're not going to be privy to all the information that's out there. You're not going to be able to comment on someone's tweet that says, "Hey, I need a person 5 p.m. today. Help me run a broadcast for whatever it is." You're not going to be able
right.
to see that. You're not going to be able to respond to that. You're limiting yourself by not doing anything at all. And on that
No.
note, you got to go out and
Well
vote.
said. That's right. That's right. We encourage everybody to do so, please. Thank you for that PSA announcement,
Yeah, you got to vote.
for everybody out
Doing
there.
nothing is not the alternative.
No, 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 not at all, not at all. Major times right now, and we definitely need to hear everyone's voices, and every vote does matter. So please encourage it and do it as a community. Make it fun. You don't necessarily have to do it by yourself. Make it a time where you connect with friends. This is the best time to do so. People have free time. Take a little bit of that time, and if your employers are allowing you to that excess time too, on top of that, great. Do it as a company. Make it a thing. Um, Excellent. Thank you so much, Peter, for that. Um, Peter, we are getting to that point where we're almost near the end, and so I'm going to ask, like I asked to everybody, just words of wisdom. What is that you'd like to share with our students, our audience out there?
um, I mean, I shared it pretty much earlier when I was talking about how the next generation of students is going to be the one that defines esports and gaming.
Yep.
I would like to also tell them that know the difference between gaming, streaming, and esports
Mm,
because esports right now is a very hot button like a hot topic like thing that everyone likes to throw around,
right.
but unless you
Right.
know how it operates in tandem with all the other branches, it's not really going to help you. So
Hmm.
do your research. If you want to be a person who's a professional, you need to consume content constantly. Constantly. Like if you want to be an analyst, you got to watch as many streams as you can about like, if you're going to be an analyst for, I don't know, Team Liquid, for example, you better be watching a lot of streams on how they're playing and analyzing like, where were they at this and what's the margins and stuff like that. You have to learn how to get the data and translate that data into like insights, and from the insights make decisions, because at the end of the day, we're working with data. We're in the future now. We have a
Right.
lot of data, but the people who extract that data may not be the same people who have the same passion as you, because you're the
Right.
student. You know what you want to see. You know what kind of things affect your decisions. The person who's sitting at the computer who's compiling all this data is probably like 50 years old, doesn't care about esports, and is probably thinking about his next fishing trip. Let's be real, because no
Mm,
one's going to love the game as much as you do, and no one's going to put as much effort in it as much as you do. So
right.
you have a responsibility now to change the system. You have a responsibility now to make sure that this becomes what you want it to become. Because if you do nothing, if you just do what's told of you, you will never see it evolve to a state where you could be proud of it, you know?
Right.
So that's super important that everyone takes things into their own hands and like responsibly takes things into their own
Right.
hands.
Right.
Do what you can. Figure out what your lane is. Figure out what you can influence, and start influencing those things. You can always influence yourself. You can always change yourself. The hard part is how do you change others?
That's
How do
right.
you get others to get aligned with you and do what you want? Like that's the hard part, right? So
Absolutely.
all these
Yeah.
things you can do right now in college. All these things you can do right now in practice with your friends. You can do if you have a Discord, which I'm sure most of you have a Discord. You can go out there, and if you're running pro teams, run pro teams, run scrims. Um, like do little marketing campaigns where you're like, hey, we're gonna do like a once per week $20 tournament kind of thing. Like
Right.
um, there are so many things that you can do that will refine your skill set without permission from someone else. You don't need permission. You never needed permission.
Nice. I love that. It's taking control and being able to be in that driver's seat. And I love what you said earlier, Peter, about if you're not working how to define yourself, others are going to do it for you. And you don't want to be in that boat. But Peter, thank you so much, man. I really can't thank you enough. And we have to have you on again. And please, everybody, thank you so much. Please just go crazy on the chat. Thank you, Peter, for his time today to talk to our community. And Peter, man, best to you. And please, we got to definitely stay in touch.
For sure, for sure. Thanks a bunch, Ruben. It's always great to come on and speak naturally about what I think about the world in gaming and personal stuff. So I didn't really get to use the boring stuff. I had so much boring stuff written out here.
No, I doubt that it was boring. So please, it was an honor. And again, this was really awesome. And we're definitely going to do it again. And yeah, you guys enjoy. For all of you that are out there, we'll see you again next time. Okay.
All right. Thanks a bunch,
Peace.
Ruben.